Age of Wonders 4 has 4 DLC packs announced to release over the next year, with the first of them, Dragon Dawn, that you can see on screen, releasing in Q3 of 2023. That's as early as July, a matter of weeks or a couple of months at the most. In this video, we're going to take a look at the 4 DLC packs and break them down to see what is on offer inside of Age of Wonders 4's expansion pass. I'll also have a couple of other quick updates and useful bits of information, including the patch update that came out for Age of Wonders 4 and more. So sit back and relax, and let's take a look and see what the world of Age of Wonders has to offer over the next year. Now, onto the Premium Edition and the DLC, something I've talked about a little bit at the tail end of a previous video, but we didn't even look at all of the DLC packs, let alone the information specifically on Dragon Dawn. So, as you can see on your screen, Age of Wonders 4, the Premium Edition, includes the expansion pass. And inside of that expansion pass, we have 4 DLC packs, starting very soon with Dragon Dawn. Then we have one called Empires and Ashes, releasing in the last quarter of this year. And then next year, we have Primal Fury and then Eldritch Realms, tiding us through until around this time next year. And of course, there's some Archmage attire included as well as the base game, rounding out the Premium Edition. In terms of pricing, and of course this varies wildly based on your region, but if you're buying it inside of the complete thing, so you're getting the game and the DLC, it'll be around $90 with the base game costing $50 by itself. You can also, of course, purchase the Premium Edition separately. Or, if you don't want to invest so much up front, you're not entirely sure about the future of the game or whatever it may be, you can also purchase the DLC packs separately. And that's why I think there's a lot of value in going through and looking at them individually. Let's start with the spiciest one of all, that is of course Dragon Dawn. The description of Dragon Dawn describes it fairly well, as you can imagine. It reads, "Embrace the power of ancient dragon lords in Age of Wonders 4 Dragon Dawn. From your dragon throne, forge enemies inhabited by reptilian minions, and use draconic magic to evolve your people into dragon hybrids. It includes a dragon ruler type, a reptilian form, and new tomes." So there's our 3 pieces of content inside of Dragon Dawn. We have a new ruler type where we'll be able to play as dragons, and we've seen that in the screenshots that they've used to tease this DLC pack. We have a new reptilian form, a form for potentially, our armies, our people, whatever it may be. That reptilian form, I'm sure, included inside of the customization features as well, was also teased in the screenshots. And then finally, we have new tomes. Note that's with an S, that's a plural. We're expecting multiple ones. I can't help but wonder if they'll add them inside of the existing affinities and try and sort of over time top them up so that there's maybe an additional 1 or 2 tomes inside of each one, whether we'll see DLC packs focus in on specific ones to really give them a bit more breadth and depth, I'm not sure. Either way, what's interesting about Dragon Dawn is, of course, like all the rest, it's included inside of the expansion pass, or you can purchase it separately. This one is one of the cheaper ones, by the way, at a standalone price of $10. And again, it releases in Q3 of 2023. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to hear things about this very soon. Before we move on to the rest of the DLC, it would also be useful to just take a slightly closer look at these screenshots. Obviously in this first one, you can see that we have a dragon ruler. You'll also notice that the people are lizard folk, in this case tough, with an underground adaptation. So that's sort of demonstrating a couple of the things. Then as we move through into a battle scene, we see that same dragon leader, but this time fighting, obviously. We get a brief look at their resistances and their abilities, but there's not really too much to show. It seems like a fairly low-tier, low-level fight with some lizard people to help. Then we move through into customization options, and here obviously we get a fantastic close look at the lizard people. I don't see a lot of new things jumping out at me on the customization front, although I would note up the top their tome is the Tome of Evolution. I'm not sure if I'm just being a dum-dum and I've forgotten that that already exists, but I feel like that doesn't. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. Then we see a different dragon leader, again seemingly fairly low-leveled, although their mana up the top right says something else entirely. I'm sure that's just been cheated in, but it gives us a nice look again at what the dragons will look like on the battlefield. Again, I would note supported by lizard people in their army. And then the final screenshot to round it out is another customization one. This time they're using the Zeal Tome, though. I can already vouch for that one. You'll note that they are a Dragon Lord, lizard folk, in this case going for barbarian and picking some society traits. And we get a feel again for what the customization looks like, this time with a dragon. Now let's move on to the next DLC. The second pack that we'll be releasing this year in 2023 is called Empires and Ashes, and this one is likely to be meatier given it costs twice the price as a standalone pack at $20 US. Its description reads, "The empires of mortals resurge after the devastation brought forth by the Wizard Kings. In the Age of Wonders 4 Empires and Ashes expansion, players fuse magic and steel to unleash devastating war machines to drive the Godia back into the astral sea." Sounds very interesting. War machines, fusing magic and steel, count me in. In terms of content, it includes a new culture. So that's, for example, like feudal. At the moment, there are 6 cultures in Age of Wonders 4. This will bring us to 7. Tomes, again with a plural. Empire building options. That one's quite interesting. I assume that'll mean additional buildings, something to do with perhaps that fusion of magic and steel. And of course, the culture itself will likely have culture-specific options too. Unsure what that will involve. And then finally, also a story realm. Age of Wonders 4, of course, doesn't have a traditional campaign as such, like some strategy games may have. But it does have those story realms that tell the story and the lore of Age of Wonders 4. And honestly, I think they're actually quite enjoyable. As I mentioned at the beginning of the Empires and Ashes section, this is a meatier pack at $20 standalone, twice the price of Dragon Dawn, and it seems to include a whole lot more, specifically that new culture that's going to add a lot of breadth and depth, extra units, all sorts of things come with that, and it releases in Q4 of this year, so sometime while the year is still ending in a 3. We'll kick off 2024 with a bang, a Primal Fury, bang at that. The third DLC pack to release for Age of Wonders 4, a smaller one in Q1 2024, is called Primal Fury. Channel nature's spirits in Age of Wonders 4 Primal Fury. Create races using new beastly forms and a primeval culture. New tomes of magic tap nature's hidden powers and the Fey realms. Your surroundings contain new forms of wildlife, creatures, and bountiful resources. What's interesting about this one is it has a standalone price much like the Dragon DLC of $10. So it's in the smaller bracket of the 2 price points, suggesting it'll be a lighter pack. However, if you unpack what they've said there, they've said we'll be able to create new races using 2 things, beastly forms and a primeval culture. Can't help but feel that we're getting a new culture here, as well as potentially some race forms that go along with it. We'll also receive new tomes of magic, plural, that tap into nature's hidden powers and the Fey realms, maybe, of course, leaning into that existing nature affinity, one that is already quite strong, one that I personally like quite a bit. And then lastly, they hint at changes to the map, the living things on it, the enemies that we'll face, right? New forms of wildlife, creatures, and bountiful resources as well. So I think extra diversity in the map and customization in and around nature will be the theme for Primal Fury. Sounds quite exciting. And last but not least, what might seem quite distant, considering it will likely release in around a year, of course it's targeted for Q2 of 2024, is the second, larger expansion pack. Again, reading between the lines, because its standalone price is $20. This one is called Eldritch Realms. The Eldritch Realms expansion opens portals to realms filled with arcane marvels and unspeakable horrors. New forces threaten the rule of the god heir of Magehaven. Now we get our new content. It says, new story content, strange monsters, new racial forms, magical realms and locations bring a new dimension to the game. Now, I could speculate on this wildly, or I could take it at face value. If I'm taking it at face value, we're receiving new story content, which to date has been focused around realms. They've used that to tell stories quite a bit. Strange monsters. Okay, so new forms on the map, new things to fight, potentially control. New racial forms. We're familiar with that, makes sense. Magical realms and locations. Again, this would appear to be hinting at realms. Maybe also places on the map, bring a new dimension to the game. And this is where my wild speculation could come in. A new dimension could be, potentially, something as extreme as a new layer to the map. If you think about how we have the underground, the world, maybe there's a third space, a third dimension, something quite astral, potentially quite dark, filled with marvels of arcane magic or unspeakable horrors. I don't know. I could be reading between the lines a little bit far on that one, credit where credit's due, but the rest of what we've reported here is, of course, straight from the facts, straight from the descriptions of the 4 DLC packs. A reminder that our first one, the Dragon DLC, will be releasing very soon, Q3 of this year. A quick note that Age of Wonders 4 received sort of a post-launch patch a few days ago now, a week ago at the time of recording almost, but it did fix a lot of the crashing issues that people were reporting. I noticed that reviews have trended up on Steam since, which is great to see because I think that Age of Wonders 4 is a really good 4X game, one of the best actually that's out there. You can see according to the patch notes, they've added a few different things in the settings as well as a driver workaround for a lot of the NVIDIA GeForce 30 series graphics cards. In fact, almost all of them by the looks. Inside of the patch, there were also a load of other things, other updates and changes, including some general fixes as well as fixes to the interface and bug patches, all that kind of stuff. No contextual changes to the game, but some stability improvements that seem to have worked and fixed a lot of those issues around the edges. So let me know what you think below. Do you think that this is good value for money, something that we discussed last time I talked briefly about the DLC? Many people complained at the beginning, a minority of people, it's important to note, that it was somehow not quite right for the game to release and then immediately have a DLC pack. I can see where they're coming from, absolutely, but also slightly tend to disagree. A game that has fast, frequent updates, new content added by the developers, to me, suggests it's a game that is thriving, a game that has a reasonable community and interest around it, and I'm excited to see what this DLC has to offer, starting, of course, with Dragon Dawn. Thank you so much for joining me today. There'll be plenty more Age of Wonders 4 where this came from right here on my channel, and I'll see you next time.